going to get right into it today because I'm excited and it's good today. It's good. Hey, so we're continuing this series. If you missed the last 2 weeks, the first week we talked about, and we've been talking about the identity and how God sees you, the identity that the Father speaks over you, and the truth of who He is in your life. And the first week we talked about the fact that He sees you as forgiven and righteous, that all your past sins have been forgiven, that currently you are living in a state of righteousness with God, that He sees you as acceptable, that He sees you not because of who you are, but because of who Jesus is through you. Then last weekend we talked about that you're a child of God, that this isn't an age, but that it's a position, that you hold a position in God's heart, that you are His child, that you're His heir, that you're part of the family business, that He has plans for you, and it's good stuff. So that's what we talked about the last 2 weeks, and we've been diving even deeper on the midweeks on Wednesdays. So if you missed any of that and you want to see it, you guys can go to our YouTube page and check it out, or on the website, however you guys want to see that. But today we're going to be talking about something that I think is, when I just say it, when we talk about it, it seems a little simple, but we're going to really unpack it and dive into it a little bit, because I think it's something that a lot of us, at least at one point or another, have struggled with this concept or this thought. And I'm going to talk about the truth, and I'm going to share with you about the lie that the enemy wants you to believe. But the thing is, the way that the Father sees you is He sees you as useful. He sees you as useful. Now, that may not seem like a big deal, but I think we need to look at the two other extremes and the lies that the enemy needs you to believe and wants you to believe to maybe see the power in this statement. And the opposite, and the thing that one of the things that the enemy wants to believe, and maybe you've had this spoken over your life, is that you're useless. You're useless. You'll never amount to anything. You can't amount to anything because you don't have the education. You don't make enough money. You didn't graduate high school. You don't have the right family pedigree. You're useless. You'll never attain what you think in your life because you're useless. Maybe someone's spoken that over you. Maybe it was someone close. Maybe it was a family member, a teacher, a coach. You're useless. And that's an extreme lie that the enemy wants you to believe today. Because it wants to believe that if you're useless, that means you're without purpose. It means that you're without destiny. It means that you're without a calling on your life. And even if you had one, you wouldn't be able to attain it, so you're useless. The second thing, the other extreme, the other side, is maybe you don't feel useless, but maybe there's been times in your life that you felt used. You felt that you were used by a group of people. They didn't care about you. They only cared about your gift. Or only cared about what you had or what you could give. But if that ever ran out, they wouldn't care about you. That maybe you've gone through a season where you felt like the only thing that church wanted from you is what it could have from you. Whether it was you volunteering or it was your money, and you felt like they were being used, that they didn't really care about you. Well, both of these things are not the truth. They're not how God sees you. They're not how the Father speaks about you. Because the Father speaks about you as someone who's useful, someone who has a purpose and has a calling and a destiny. And we're going to look at a story today that I really think shows this picture, and it especially deals with the concept of being useless. Because sometimes we're faced with situations in life where we feel useless. But God has something to speak over you today. And this story is a really fun story. It's the story of Gideon. I like the story of Gideon because to me it's just this ultimate story of how God can do anything with anyone that He chooses, and amazing things can happen. But Gideon's interesting because Gideon is a character that, man, he's got a lot of issues. He's got some self-esteem issues. He's got some faith issues, and I don't think he's particularly smart either, and I'm going to show you that. I'll prove it scripturally to you because it's important. What you need to know is this is found in Judges chapter 6. And to put this in a time frame, this is when the nation of Israel is being ruled by judges, okay? So it's before any of the kings. This is before King Saul. This is before King David. There is no king. But this is after Moses and Abraham and all those people. They're a nation, but they're being ruled by judges. And the way that would work is that God would raise up a judge, or sometimes two, and they would be God's representation, and they would be who not just do legal, judicial things, but really would be like kind of the prophet who would speak the truth over the nation of Israel and guide them spiritually as well. And throughout their history, the nation of Israel would have this up and down relationship with God. They'd be really close to God, things would be going good, they'd follow him, and then all of a sudden they'd turn away from him. And then they'd follow him and they'd turn away from him. Well, this particular story is found in the part where they have decided to turn away. Not only are they not following God, but they're actually worshiping other false gods, multiple of them. Two big ones that you'll see in the Bible is Baal, and they'll also talk about the Asherah pole. Those are two big idols and gods and religions that they would constantly turn to. And they were perversions of truth. A lot of them actually had sexual rituals built into them. They were not good religions. And so this is a season where it's a low point. And during the part where in the seasons where they were not being followed by God, and they were not following God, God will remove his hand of protection, because in the old covenant, the old law, you did good, you received good. You did bad, you received bad. And so when they would stop following him, he would lift his protection off it. And during this season, there was a nation called the Midianites who were constantly coming in, raiding them, stealing their stuff, oppressing them, stealing their people, etc., etc., etc. Just not good stuff. And so the Israelites were at a bad place, and they were upset. And it's interesting, we'll see this in a second. They were upset, and what's funny is they blamed God, the God of Israel, for the fact that he wasn't protecting them. But they never blamed their false gods, who they were actively worshiping, for the fact that they weren't protecting him. Sometimes we do that. We get upset with God, and we never want to look at maybe what the decisions that we're making to get to where we're at, right? That's just a free one. So, Gideon is here. And Gideon is doing something that's just kind of crazy. It's kind of funny. I'm going to read this to you, and then we'll talk about it. Judges chapter 6, verse 11 to 12, it says, "Then the angel of the Lord came and sat beneath the great tree at Ophrah." Not Oprah, but we can call it Oprah. We're going to call it the great tree of Oprah, which belonged to Joash of the clan of Abiezer. Gideon, son of Joash, was threshing wheat at the bottom of a winepress to hide the grain from the Midianites. The angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, "Mighty hero, the Lord is with you." Now I want to stop right here, because man, we got a lot right here. Only the Bible can pack so much detail in just a couple verses. So much detail. So first of all, we need to know who some of these characters are. So when the Bible in the Old Testament talks about the angel of the Lord, it's actually talking about Jesus. Jesus coming down and being a messenger. Jesus would come down as the angel of the Lord. That's what they would call him in Hebrew. And he would come, and he was specifically speaking to Gideon. And this is important because it's the characteristic of Jesus. You see his character and who he is through this whole story, and the fact that he's always patient, always loving, always kind, and that he walks in that throughout his life. But the second thing we need to know is that we've got Gideon. And Gideon, this is where I find the part of him not being the smartest guy in the world. So, they were afraid of the Midianites, and what the Midianites kept doing is every time they had a harvest, the Midianites would come and steal it, right? Because that was one of the big things that people would steal back then was food. It was really two things, people and food. That's what they would steal. That was a lot of what everything was going on. They wanted to steal more people to become servants, and they wanted more food so they could feed all the servants and eat really well. Like, that's what it was. So during the winter, you didn't really go and fight and steal stuff because there was nothing to steal. But you waited till harvest time because that was when you wanted to get it. So that he had this idea, like, man, they keep coming and stealing my stuff. I've got a great idea. I'm going to thresh this wheat in a wine press. Now, you have to know a little bit about it. I don't know how many farmers we have, but when you take wheat, the threshing and being able to separate the chaff from the actual grain, which is what you're wanting to be able to make flour and stuff, the way they would do it is they'd have these big wicker baskets, right? And they would take those and they'd have the grain, the whole heads of grain with the chaff and the kernel in there, and they would throw them up in the air, and they would allow the wind to blow the lighter chaff away. It would blow it away, and then what would rain down was the actual kernels of grain, and that's what they would want, because that's what you would take and you would mill and you'd be able to make flour and bread, etc. And so that's what they would do. But that would work all the time. You throw it up, the wind would come, you catch it. But here's a problem. He decided he didn't want to be caught, because that makes you can see it makes a cloud, right? When you're doing a lot of it, it would make a cloud and people would see it, and he was afraid the Midianites would be like, oh, let's go get it. Because it's one thing to get your food stolen, it's another thing to get your processed food stolen. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just worse. It's okay, you can laugh. So he has this idea, I'm going to do it in a wine press hole. It's a hole. They dig a hole. Now, I don't know how much time you've spent in a hole in the ground. I've spent a decent amount of time in there. It's a long story. But in a whole, there's one thing that's missing. A really key component is missing of what you need to thresh wheat. Wind. So you have to picture, here's Gideon. He's in this hole, and he's just throwing it up in the air, but there's no wind. And so literally it's just raining back down on top of him. It's not working. It's not happening. You know, you'd think maybe you'd try it once or twice and then maybe give up. He just kept going. He's thinking sometimes it's just raining on him. You know he's getting frustrated. You know he's not exactly like just thrilled about it. He's in a hole. He's scared his food's going to get stolen. He's not in a great place. And then all of a sudden this guy comes and greets him in a way that he's never been greeted before in his life. He literally goes up to him and he says, "Mighty hero, the Lord is with you." Some version says, "Mighty man of valor." Basically it's like, "Listen, awesome dude, you're an awesome guy and we're about to do some awesome stuff. Are you with me?" And he's in a hole, but I'm sure he's looking around like, "Me? Are you talking to, you're talking to the guy who's threshing wheat in a hole?" So he's a little upset. So he has a weird answer in verse 13. This is Gideon. He says, "Sir," Gideon replied, "if the Lord was with us, why has all this happened to us? And where are all the miracles our ancestors told us about? Didn't they say the Lord brought us up out of Egypt, but now the Lord has abandoned us and handed us over to the Midianites?" And you know, that's a pretty big accusation to make, especially when you know just right down the road are your idols and your Asherah poles, and we know he knows that because he tears them down a little later. But to say that, and you know, it was because he was frustrated. You know, when you're working on a project, it's not going well, you're frustrated. You know what I'm saying? You ever had something, you just needed a little longer screw, or you just had the wrong, I'm always one tool short and one screw away from being able to totally remodel my house, but because I don't have them, I just don't start, because I know better. At least that's what I tell my wife. It's just always one tool, one screw. If I had one more tool, one more screw, we could be able to do it, but I don't. And they don't sell it. So he's upset. But notice, Jesus completely just ignores him. He just throws this real hard shade at him and is upset. And you know, we picture the Old Testament God this should have been smiting material. If I was God, I'd be like, "You're smited. Done. They'll find you in the winepress covered in wheat, you idiot." That's what I would have done. But they didn't. He just totally ignores it. And he says, "Then the Lord turned to him and said, 'Go with the strength you have and rescue Israel from the Midianites. I am sending you.'" And I love this. At this point, he kind of calms down. But then he's like, "God, I think you have the wrong guy." He says, "But Lord," Gideon replied, "how can I rescue Israel? My clan is the weakest in the whole tribe of Manasseh, and I'm the least in my entire family." Then the Lord said to him, "I will be with you, and you will destroy the Midianites as if you're fighting against one man." And it's interesting, he's got some self-esteem issues because, you know, Midian, that was the smallest tribe of Israel at the time, the weakest tribe. And he says his clan in Midian is the weakest, or Manasseh, excuse me. He's the weakest clan in Manasseh, and then he's the weakest person in his whole family. So he's basically saying, I am literally the worst, weakest, most useless person in the entire country. That's pretty low self-esteem. He's like, I haven't even met them all, but I just am gonna go ahead. They can't be worse than me. I'm gonna go and slot myself way low, the lowest of the low. The worst in my family, which is the worst in the clan, which is the worst in the tribe, which is the worst in the country. I'm useless. So useless, they sent me into a hole to throw wheat around. That's the level of trust I get. But Jesus, so many times, he goes and he greets him in a way that he's never been greeted. No one's ever called him a hero. No one's called him a mighty man of valor. And definitely no one's ever said you're going to do something incredible. Ever. He's the worst. And then on top of it, he says something like, hey, you don't need to change anything. Go and the strength you already have. Which if you listen to the rest, he said, well, that's nothing. And Jesus is like, that's enough. What you have is enough to be able to do what I'm calling you to do. You're going to defeat it. And so The story I'm going to have to abbreviate because of time's sake. But the story is crazy because Jesus is so patient with them. All of a sudden, Gideon's like, okay, maybe I should do this. Maybe I could. But he's nervous. He's like, what if this is just some random guy who's coming to punk the worst person in the country? And he's just like going to tell me to do something, and then joke, you're dead. So he goes and he says, let me do something so you can do a sign for me. I need a sign. I need a miracle. He doesn't have very much faith, right? So he goes, wait here. Can you wait here? Can you wait here? Please, please. And Jesus is like, I guess I'll wait here. And so he runs back to his house and he tries to get some kind of offering. I don't know if he was making him a meal. He was confused. He didn't know if it was an offering for a person or it was an offering for a deity, or he was confused. So he kind of cooked it, he wasn't really sure what was going on. He brought some chicken noodle soup in there. It was confusing. So he goes and he gets it all and he brings it to him and he sets it on a stone. How long this took, I don't know. They didn't have microwaves. There was no research. It wasn't a grab-and-go box. So there's some time had to have passed. And he sets it before Jesus, and then instantly the whole thing is engulfed in fire. And at the same time, Jesus leaves. Now you'd think this is hey, good miracle. Spontaneous combustion, the guy disappeared. That definitely confirms that he's not a person. These are good signs that I'm seeing here. But instead, Gideon freaks out and is like, oh no, now I'm gonna die because I saw God. He looked at me, and I'm like, hello, and he's gonna kill me now. Again, he's just not all there. It's well, if he's gonna kill you, he would have killed you a long time ago, when you looked at him. And if he didn't want you to look at him, he probably wouldn't have shown up. But a lot of people feel that way. God can't look at me or else I'll die. So, obviously, the Bible's interesting because verses pass and you don't know how much time's up, but he's freaking out. The angel had to come back and be like, you're not going to die. I don't know if he just beamed right back in. It's hey, man, you're not going to die. It's okay, I'll see you later. And then beam back out. I don't know how quick these things happen. But he had to go back because he was already freaking out, curled up in the wheat. I'm just going to bury myself in this wine press. And so he goes to him and says, you're not going to die, it's good. So then he Gideon says, well, okay, so you spontaneously combust, you disappeared, you called me all these things, you knew my name, you did all this stuff. But I would like another sign. Can I ask for another sign? And again, by this point, patience over. Zapped. I can find someone else, the next worst person in the whole country. There will be a new worst one because you're done. But he doesn't do that. He says, sure, what do you want me to do? So he says, this is where we get the whole fleece, putting a fleece out. Have you ever heard that? I'm going to put some fleece out there, right? It's a real Christian thing to say. I'm going to put some fleece out and see what happens. Well, this comes from this story. And basically he says, okay, I want to put a lamb's fleece out on the ground, and I want everything around it to be dry, and I want the fleece to be really wet. I don't think it was the best, if I was going to do this and God's saying anything, I feel like I would have asked, I'm going to put this big case out here, and I need it to be filled with gold by tomorrow. I would have done something else, but he wanted water on a wool. I don't know why. And so he wakes up the next morning, he runs out there, the ground's dry, and the fleece is totally wet. And he says he strung it out and filled up a jar of yummy wool water. It's going to be delicious. I don't know what he's going to do with it, but he had it. And so it was great. That's where the gold would have probably been better. And so you'd think, okay, he just did a miracle. You're in. You're in now. This is the second time. And he's like, don't be upset, but can we do it again? But this time, I want the wool to be dry, but the ground to be wet. I don't know if he wanted the even coverage of his lawn. I don't know what he was doing exactly. But he throws it out there. And again, at this point, patience over. And Jesus is like, yeah, sure. I'll do that too. So he does it, and lo and behold, he wakes up the next morning, same thing. The fleece is dry, the ground's wet. And so finally Gideon's like, okay, I'm going to do it. And it says the Spirit of the Lord was on him strongly. And so he gets out the ram's horns, and he blows the ram horn, and they're going to gather the troops, and people show up, and they have 20,000 plus troops show up, which is pretty good when you're the lowest of the low, because I'm sure at some point, everyone's like, who? Gideon? The lowest of the low? He was the last on the fantasy draft to be picked. Had to scroll way down to find his name. But the Spirit of God was on him, so he found favor. So 20,000 people. But here was the problem. The Midianites had came, they crossed over, and they had 100,000 plus troops. Now, I know we're not all military historians, but when someone has 100,000 and you have 20,000, it's not good. It's not good. You need more troops, right? You want to be even. You need some more. But God goes to Gideon and says something that I'm sure Gideon was just like, I'm sorry, I'm confused. Because he goes to Gideon and they're all there in their camp and he says, Gideon, you have too many troops. And I'm sure Gideon's like, man, I really am not good at this because I thought we needed more. And now you say we need less, and I just don't know anything anymore. So he says, go to the army and say, anyone who's scared can go home. Well, I'm not sure if this was a large lie scenario or maybe this is true, but half of them left. And I don't know if it was like half of them left, the other half just didn't tell the truth that they were scared, because if you're going to war, it's scary. Okay, this isn't like exciting, like this is a scary thing. But half of them left, now they only have 10,000 troops. And Gideon's like, okay, this is worse. This is worse. But God said to do it, so we're going to do it. And then God said, you know what? I was looking at it again, and you still have too many. Still too many, Gideon. Because if you did it now, you'd think you did it yourself. If you did it now, it's too easy. Because when I do things, God said, when I do things, no man can boast about it. Right? That's why I picked you, Gideon, the lowest of the low. Because no one would have thought I'd pick you. Not even your own mom. So he says, go to the water. We're going to split up into groups. If people drink it out of their hands like this, they're going to be in one group. If people like dunk their heads and drink like dogs, they're in another group. And so lo and behold, they separated, and there's 300 guys who did it real civilized, which should be no shock. And he says, we're going to keep that group, the 300. And before some of you get excited, this wasn't Spartans. They weren't 300 Spartans. They weren't like elite trained, ripped guys. They're just like normal dudes. Like, I wish I would have drank a different way. They may not even be the best fighters, because you think the best fighters would really just savage get in there. But they're like, it's like them? It's like Gideon's crew, the bottom 300 here. So they go and he says, this is it. This is what I'm going to use. So Gideon's freaking out. He's freaking out, but he's like, okay, we're going to do this. So they camp, and they get pretty close to the camps. Not going to be a fair fight. But then God says, he wakes him up in the middle of the night and says, listen, I know you're nervous. I'm going to give them to your hands. Go to the camp and listen. There's somebody who's going to have a dream. You're going to hear it. You're going to hear what they're talking about. So he goes and he's sneaking around, and he overhears some people talking about, man, I had this nightmare and I was sleeping, and all of a sudden this giant loaf of bread came and it rolled through and it crushed my tent. Some of you guys have had, it's like a keto nightmare. Like you've been dreaming about bread that's coming to kill you and it's going to crush you. Like you've been seeing it in your sleep. Well, that's exactly what's happening here. The bread was coming, and this guy interpreted the dream and was like, hey, this must mean that God's going to deliver us into their hands. So they're scared. You know, there's a lot of superstition back then. There was a lot of different, and so they were scared. So there was going to be fear. There was fear. They felt like it was a bad omen. But Gideon heard this and said, this is the sign we've been looking for. So he goes and gets his 300 troops, and they give him a ram's horn and a jar and a torch. There's some key things they didn't get: swords, shields, spears, anything you need to actually fight. So, I don't know if they had any. So, but they go, they surround the camp, and he said, when I give the signal, blow your ram's horn, break your jar, wave around your torch. Which again, just, I would feel like it's not the best tactic. Like, hey, question, when they see us, what do we do? Because I have no sword, no sling, no shield, no anything. Like, I'm just going to wave this torch at them, throw glass shards at them. Didn't feel good. But they did it. And when they made the noise, it said that the Midianites freaked out. They ran all over the place. They started killing each other, started fighting each other, and then they retreated. Because God stirred confusion in their camp, and they ran off. And then in ancient war, that was when almost all the casualties happened, is when one team decided to turn and run. Because it's much easier to get somebody from behind than when they're like fighting back, right? So Israel goes and just chases them as they're retreating and wipes them out. And you know, throughout the whole story, Jesus just kept walking through with Gideon, being patient for his lack, being patient with his questions, being patient with his desires, walking through and guiding him through the fear, because he had a use for him. And at the end, he maybe even took it too far, because later when they're chasing him, they stopped at a town, and this same guy who's like, me, I'm the worst, I'm the lowest, the same guy, when a town refused to give his troops any water, he's like, I'm coming back and I'm burning your whole town down. Like, he'd gone like opposite extreme. Like, he was like, I'm coming and I will remove the skin from your bones. I was like, whoa, Gideon, calm down. Weren't you just the lowest of the low? Like, man, just take it chill. But you see, Gideon shows us this purpose, that it doesn't matter what your standing is. It doesn't matter what your history is. When God chooses you for something, when God calls you for something, when God says you're useful, he's going to walk through it. And here's part of the problem that we walk through. And Gideon could have walked into this too. Sometimes we have these things and we think, oh man, I got to do this for God. I'm going to do this for God. I'm going to make this sacrifice for God. I'm going to go to church. I'm going to serve. I'm going to give. I'm going to do it for God. God, I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for you, God, because you need me. I'm going to do it for you. I'm going to do it for you. And I did this for a long time. God, I'm doing this for you. I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to do this for you. And then all of a sudden I fail. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I just failed God. I'm the lowest of the low. I fell short. And it keeps happening. But God has something that he keeps saying over and over and over, and this story illustrates, and there's more and more and more, and it's this: God doesn't want you to do anything for him. He has something that he wants to do through you that you get to be a part of. He has something that he wants to do through you that you get to be a part because you're useful and because he loves you. John 15 says this. It says, this is Jesus speaking. He said, I have never called you servants because a master doesn't confide in his servants. And servants don't always understand what the master is doing. But I call you my most intimate friends. For I reveal to you everything that I've heard from my Father. You didn't choose me, but I've chosen and commissioned you to go into the world to bear fruit. And your fruit will last, because whatever you ask of my Father for my sake, he will give it to you. So this is my parting command: love one another. I love that. You didn't choose me, but I've chosen you. You're useful. If you have kids, you maybe will understand this. My boys, every time I'm doing a project, they always want to do it with me. They want to be useful. They want to help me do it. Can I help you? Can I help you? Doesn't matter if I'm cooking something. Can I be your assistant chef? To working on a project, they want to help. And if you know kids when they're young, the truth is, they're not super useful. They kind of get in the way. They slow you down. You have to explain everything. They ask a lot of questions. You would tell them, hey, bring me the Phillips. I'm like, I don't know what that is. It's like, why do you not know what a Phillips is? Has no one taught you that? Well, no, Dad. Is that a handy-manny thing, or? Guess that was on me. Should have touched that. But I don't do things with my boys because it speeds things up for me. I do things with them because I know it's good for them. Because they get to spend time with me while we do it. And early on, it's not the most useful thing. We don't become more productive. When I cook with Rafa right now, and we're cooking these gourmet meals like macaroni and cheese and frozen pizza, and he wants to help me, he doesn't speed it up. And he likes to get real close to the burner. Like, he just really wants to get in there because he likes to feel the heat. But as they get older, all of a sudden they become more and more used to spending time with me. And they become more and more useful in a natural sense. And now I have a 10-year-old that he gets to mow the backyard all by himself. It's awesome. It's awesome. And you know what? As much as I love it, he loves it more. He comes to me and says, look, I finished. Look how good it looks. Look how good the backyard looks. Look at the lines I made. Aren't you proud of me? Can you believe we did this together? And one of the things, I hated mowing the lawn. I hated mowing the lawn. But I look forward to mowing the lawn now because we get to do it together. because he's useful, because he gets to do it with me, but he's the one who gets to see and say, I can do it. I can do this, and I get to spend time with my dad, and I get to do it because I'm useful, because he said he believed in me back when I couldn't even see over the top, and I couldn't push it. And he still can't start it, but that's okay. I just walk out there with my coffee, and I start it, and I say, don't let it die, and I walk back inside. He knows that he is useful because it's for him. Science proves this out. We've heard about the hierarchy of needs, and used to, the biggest need, the biggest level of completion was called self-actualization. And that's when you really walked out and understood the gifts that you were given, that you understood your purpose, that you understand what you were doing in your life, and that you had found your value and your calling. Like that was considered to be the highest level of need realization. But then they realized that there's actually a higher level, and so they revamped it, and they put another one on top of it, and it's called transcendence. And it's actually the concept of being part of something that's bigger than yourself and helping other people realize their gifts and their self-actualization. Like being able to teach other people to do it. You see, God's programmed inside of us not only a desire to be useful and to understand that we're useful and to be able to spend time with God, but he's planted a desire for us to understand that in your usefulness, I have a calling for you. And part of that calling is you get to help other people along on their journey. The reason that I'll continue to do this is I'm going to push and ask and request for you guys to serve here at your church is not because we got a bunch of holes to fill. I don't want you to do it because it makes it easier on me. I want you to serve because it's good for you. Because you get the opportunity to use your gifts. You get to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself, and you get to serve people and help them find their purpose. Find a relationship with Jesus. And that doesn't matter if you're greeting someone at the door, or you're making a cup of coffee, or you're ministering to our youngest kids. You get to be using your gifts. I ask you to get involved, and I want you to serve, not because it's easier for me. It's a lot of paperwork. Because it's good for you. I have my boys do this stuff with me all the time because it's good for them. We get to spend time together. God's heart for you is know you're useful. And you know what? Maybe today you're sitting here and you've been fighting and you think about the words of the people who've told you you weren't useful, that you had no purpose, you were never going to achieve anything. I want you to know God's here just saying, reject those words. Don't believe those words. You have a calling. You are useful. We spend time together and we watch things grow and improve. I have a purpose for you. I have a destiny that I've called you to. You can do so many things, and I want to do it together because in that we get to spend time and we get to grow because I've already forgiven you. I see you as righteous with me. You're my child. Now let's go and do things together and learn and grow and become more and more useful. And as we understand our usefulness, we become more and more emboldened by what God's calling us to do. And as the calling gets greater, the trust becomes greater because we know I can't do this because by myself I'm the lowest of the low. But if God called me to do it, I know he'll equip me to do it, and we'll walk through it, and he's there for me. And if I can't start the mower, he'll start it for me and just tell me to push because I get to keep going because you're useful. You have a purpose. He's not going to leave you. He'll never say you're useless. And if you say, God, can you help me? Just like Gideon, Jesus never gets worried about showing you you're useful. He'll never say, nope, that was the last time. I'm not going to deal with this unbelief anymore. I'm not going to deal with this lack of faith anymore. Instead, he's always there saying, yeah, let's do it. What do you need? What do you need me to do? I'll show you again. You don't remember how to do it? I'll show you again. You don't think you have the ability? Let me show you again how it's not your ability, but it's my ability through you that has it. Then I'm not asking you to do anything for me. I'm asking to do something through you because other people will be blessed through who you are. Other people will get to see the love of a Father. Other people's lives will be changed forever. You know, our missions team leaving, they're going, and you know what? They could be overwhelmed by the need and the huge need that's there, and at times they could feel useless, like we can't do enough. Well, guess what? They're going to be able to do just the right thing because it's not about what they're doing, it's what God's doing through them. And the work that they start this week won't just end when they come back. It continues going because the seed that's planted continues to grow, even when we can't see it. God calls you to do things. You're useful to him. You're not a burden. You're not useless. He doesn't want to manipulate you. He wants a relationship with you, and you're useful today. Let's bow our heads. Father, thank you for who you are. Thank you for what you're calling us to do. Thank you for the fact that you say we're useful, that you believe in us, you believe in the calling, that you want to partner with us. But Father, right now, I know that there's people who are here who they haven't accepted you. They haven't accepted the sacrifice. And I want to just give everyone an opportunity today to repeat this prayer. Just everyone here, just say, Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for sending Jesus to die for me so that I can be forgiven. I can be righteous. I can be a child of God and find my usefulness through you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.